Yes, Mr. Mwite.
My Lords, may I start on behalf of the first and second respondents?
You have also 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I start by paying compliments to the Registrar of this Honorable Court, who at very short notice, severe time constraints, has been able, working with the IT experts appointed by this court, to produce two reports, which should be read and seen by your lordships in the context of the limited time. Satisfactory reports. Reports that say the opposite of what the Honorable Orengo is suggesting they say. Although you also have limited time to go through these reports, but I urge you that you go through them, and where it is necessary, you compare the information here with the forms 34As which have been filed with the court, including forms 34B. My Lord, you see from this first report, the blue one, that the registrar is complaining. She convened a meeting of the parties at 4 p.m. on the very day that she was told to commence this work. The petitioners did not turn up until 6:30. It's all captured in her report. You will see at page 10 the registrar saying, however, as the process went on, they introduced a new checklist. That's the petitioner, which is a modus operandi. Lord, let me make a few points here with regard to this report. One, at the time that the returning officer for the presidential elections announced the results, he had received all the scanned copies 34B. And let me repeat here that Form 34B for each constituency is the aggregate of Form 34As, copies of which you have here. When you are being asked to hold that the elections were not conducted in accordance with the law, you can only do that by looking at what the law requires with regard to Forms 34Bs and 34As. But when you look at the regulation 79 2A with regard to Forms 34A and regulation 83A with regard to Form 34B, you will find that the requirement is for those forms to be signed. And actually the format of the prescribed form, you will see it in the schedule to the regulations. So there is no requirement in the regulations about any security features. So you cannot be asked to disregard the forms because of security features. The regulations are clear as to what should be in the forms. And Lord, if you turn to page Scrutiny of Forms 34Bs, it's not paginated, but it's schedule 7 in this blue form. With regard to the constituencies in respect of which the forms are said not to have been signed by the returning officers. 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them. If you look at the column serial number, the form had a serial number. If you look at the next column, watermark, the forms had watermarks. Be able to see the number of voters in those particular polling stations. In fact, when you compare, you will see that the majority of them actually voted for the petition.
Excuse me, Mr. Mwite.
Yes.
With regard to what you said about regulations 79 and 83,
Yeah.
that there were no security features required on these forms?
It is not a requirement of the law. The next column is returning officer signed, that is the ones that are not signed. But the next column, agent, you will find there wasn't enough time. Because when you scan a copy, you can actually lose some of the security features. But what I'm saying
Mr. Mwite, before
is
you
that the
move,
forms
Mr. Mwite,
34, yes,
before you move,
yes, my lord.
how do you explain Nyali in that form? And the serial number, or lack of it?
Yes, there is no serial number, but that's admitted.
What does that mean?
If I had time, I would take instructions. But if you go to the next column, my lord,
Yes.
it says it is signed by 2 agents, ODM and Jubilee. So that the next question, my lord, why were the agents of ODM and Jubilee signing the form for Nyali? So they are signed. Is it reasonable to expect a party who has signed a form to come here and disown the form? Look, the simple point submission I'm making here is that the forms 34B were in possession of the national returning officer for the presidential vote, and he was perfectly right in declaring the third respondent duly elected. Lord, with regard to the forms about access, again, when you read this report on IT, on access to the system, you will find that in terms of paragraph 72 of your ruling, we availed all the orders of this code, the items that we are asked to avail. You see that we availed them. We even gave a soft copy of the logs, which the petitioner did not want to take. And my lord, we set up the link, passwords we are given. My lord, you will see from this report that the company that we were relying on as a commission for this system is NTT in America. The servers were in Europe, but the company NTT is in America. And you know the time difference is 8 hours. My lord, can I have some peaceful environment to make my submissions?
You said who are in you?
NTT, America.
Yeah.
They are the ones who are contracted by Shaft. Welcome to the NTT. No, the other. Saffron. And my lord, the point is this. After giving the link, giving the access, because of the super security features in this system, it took time to access. In simple language, it's like mtego wa panya in a city park, as it used to be. You know, when you go to the door, you can't get to the center until you go around all the parts. It takes time to get round the firewalls and access. And that was a challenge. And that was being set up by our service providers. So it took time, not us refusing. And the fact that it took such a long time is evidence of the security features in the system, which then demolishes the suggestion that anybody would have hacked. And you will have the opportunity to study this report as to whether indeed your experts themselves saw any evidence of hacking. So you cannot be asked, my lords, to nullify a presidential election on the basis of allegation. Those are not being challenged, my lord. What we are being told is this did not have a watermark, this did not, but you have not been told even now that the figures in any of Form 34B, that any of the figures in Forms 34A were wrong or cooked. You have them here, and even with the constraints of time, look, your staff, your registrar can go through them, my lord, and once you are satisfied about the figures, the sovereign will of the people of Kenya was captured in Forms 34A, Forms 34B, and Form 34C, my lord, was completed. That was the one that was completed most transparently, because everybody was able to follow the chairman of the commission signing that form in the presence of all the media. There's absolutely nothing wrong, no evidence. And my lord, the fact that this court, as the registrar, to do that limited scrutiny in terms of time does not shift the burden of proof. When you retire to consider your judgment, you will ask yourself, I submit, whether the petitioners have presented this court with any cogent evidence that these elections were rigged. By who, when, and how? Have you been presented with that evidence? All they've been talking about is this technicality and that technicality. My lords, the results announced captured and represent the will of the Kenyan people. My lord, it is a fact that the judgment of the Court of Appeal, which was given on the eve of the elections, presented certain challenges. For example, my lord, the Chief Justice kept asking those figures that we were seeing on the screen, what were they? My lord, it's necessary to distinguish between the public portal and the screen. They are different, they are not the same. And therefore, the raw information in terms of how the people have voted is what was being beamed on the screen. And my lord, following your lordship's judgment, given that this judgment of the Court of Appeal came on the eve of the elections, the commission will take steps to improve on how communication of the result should be, to harmonize the public portal and this screen, perhaps to wait for the form to be received instead of the results data being keyed in on these KIMS and being transmitted and then being relayed immediately. Perhaps wait until Form 34 is completed so that as you feed it into the public portal, which is not accessible by a majority of Kenyans, you also screen it